Now, so that's an interesting little story. Two people that are both considered to be Buddhists, but there seems to be quite a gap between them. So what would you say this story has to say, or this little incident? What does that inform you about Buddhism, David?
Actually, I'm actually pretty interested in a lot of this and reading about it. And there's a lot of differing philosophy between Buddhists. A lot of it has to come with the tradition you're from. Tibetan Buddhists and Zen Buddhists, they come from two different schools. Zen Buddhism primarily comes from Japan, and they believe in a different incarnation of the Buddha, whereas the Tibetan Buddhists believe in another incarnation of the Buddha, and technically they're both right. If in the Mahayana tradition, in a tradition where everything is Buddha nature, everything it comes from the same thing. I would say that the context is more cultural than it is relating to the actual Buddhist religion itself. From my experience, one thing that I've noticed a lot of them have in common is Buddhism is more about learning through experience and less about adhering to doctrine. So, in one aspect, I look at the Korean demanding to know what something is more to inflate his own ego, which is common in every religion, especially I believe among like priests, if you will, or people who are held in high esteem. And technically, I would say from a Buddhist standpoint, technically, the Tibetan was correct. He didn't have to say anything because if his experience was that it was something that didn't deserve or need an answer, then he did not have to answer. So that could have been an answer in itself. I mean, from a Buddhist perspective, I really think that there's so much strife even within Buddhism. I mean, there's films of one Buddhist sect killing another Buddhist sect to take their monastery. So there's violence within it too. And the term Buddhist is so broad. It's like saying Christianity. You know, there's too much to it, I think.
So the image of Buddhists as sort of transcendent beings that have gotten beyond mere human ego-driven, or what you might call ego-driven desires and urges and jealousies, maybe isn't totally correct in describing all the people that claim to be practicing Buddhists, I guess. If you're saying that there's examples of people killing to steal a monastery,
right? But like I said, I think that's more cultural. And also, if you really want to look at the most pure form of what the word Buddha means, it means nature. It just means the nature of being or waking up. So it's not so clear. And to say that somebody's a Buddhist really doesn't hold much pertinence to me. It's
hard to know what that means.
Yeah, it's very hard.
It could mean
even within the same type of Buddhism, there could be differing opinions, and it's just where you're at in your transition, in your thought process. No one's better or worse than anybody else. People just are. That's kind of the whole point of it.
Marianne, now listening to this little episode that occurred, and this Tibetan who seemed to be pretty much couldn't really quite figure out exactly what the Zen guy was trying to do.
I feel like that about Zen altogether. I'm kind of new to studying Buddhism, but two things kind of anchor me, hold me. And one is that they say there are many paths to enlightenment. And the purpose of all Buddhists, I think that most of them would be to be enlightened. Not necessarily.
Not so much.
Okay.
What would you say? A person who's on the right path, maybe. Maybe not all Buddhists.
Well, they hang around with the ones I've been hanging around with. But I would say that I don't know. The ones I've met do allow for other points of view. And as far as they're concerned, Jesus was an enlightened being, and he had a lot of really good things to say, and they quoted a lot. And even the different Buddhists will quote each other. So, you know, they'll quote the Dalai Lama even if they're not in his group. And so I think they have, the ones I've met have, or read their things, have respect for other people and their beliefs. So they're really past the alignment. That's one thing. And the other thing is that I've heard this quote twice from different sources, that the original Buddha said, and he has a name that I can't pronounce, said, don't believe anything you hear or anything you read just because you heard it. Don't even believe anything I say, but think about it, and if it makes sense, then believe it.
That's the whole idea of experience. It's learning through experience. It's all about experiencing. And really, you're not supposed to have any insight, so you're not trying to become enlightened. You're only experiencing things in the moment. And if that leads to enlightenment, then it does. It's sort of like being intuitive. You know, you live this path.
Like meditating, man.
It is meditating. You've gotten better, I can tell.
Yeah.
So it's like that. And I think that you're constantly learning. You know, the Buddha meditated until the day he died. So it wasn't like he didn't think he had anything else to understand. And everyone else called him enlightened. He just said he was waking up. So he never used the word enlightened.
So I think the Buddhist, the Tibetan, he reminds me of the Buddhists that I've met here, and they like to make jokes. And I think it was a joke.
You think so?
Oh yes, I absolutely do.
You think the Tibetan was making a
I
joke?
think he was, and I think he recognized that the Zen master was that there was not going to be any answer that was going to be all right with the Zen master because he had a different point to make, and he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to get into that role, so he made a joke. And the ones I've met, and I took a 6-week class with this Buddhist nun, and she frequently made jokes like that.
Was she of a particular tradition? Tibetan or Zen or-
She's Kadapa, which is more like Tibetan.
Yeah, it's Mahayana. Yeah, it's sort of the same tradition.
Yeah, it's you know, they were a different guy than the Dalai Lama, but it's more like Tibetan.
If I could just add something, just because it just came to my mind.
Sure.
I'm thinking about the Buddhist. This is a universal Buddhist idea, by the way, of right action and right speech. So it's possible that the Tibetan didn't think that there was anything he could say or do that wouldn't cause either harm to this man. Like, you don't want to knock somebody down off their pedestal, or build himself up, because either one of those things were going to benefit either him or the Zen person that was presenting the question to him. So rather than act without right intention, without right thought, without right speech, he chose not to say anything as the most humane and the most righteous alternative.
See, now when I read this story, I actually didn't think that the Tibetan was making a joke. I thought that he truly was bewildered by what the Zen guy was doing, that this was so different than his own experience in his own religious life, that it was just outside of whatever he'd encountered, and he just wasn't sure what the whole... I think he just wasn't sure what the guy was saying.
As you and I would be, what's wrong with that guy? We would say the same thing.
Yeah, because I'm just guessing that the Tibetan, they don't sit